Mm, are we live?
We're
Yeah,
live.
we're live. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I am here today with a very special guest. It's not you, Elam. Stop smirking.
Don't you worry. I know my place in the ranking here.
You better do your job and start talking about who this is with us. Like Mark.
I thought you were going to introduce him. Mark Masoner.
Mark is a.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on.
Well, we're honored to have you. You're not going to tell people what he does?
You tell him what to do.
You're not the boss of me.
All right, I'll tell everyone what I do. I am the
tell us
co-host.
what you do, Mark.
I'm the co-host of the Plain People's podcast, and I'm also a social worker at a homeless shelter in my hometown.
Thank you. So, one of the things that frequently people wonder about is how to get help after they've had trauma like physical abuse, sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, etc., etc. And I've wanted to do this for a long time, kind of talk about one, how I find a therapist.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm assuming that you had some counseling at some point in time, right?
Oh, honey, I'm still in counseling.
Aren't we all?
It's a work in progress. I mean, we got to do what we got to do, right?
Yeah.
To keep us moving, keep us alive, help us process. Another thing that I kind of want to talk about too a little bit is just how there's no space to process historically. There's been no space. So, in 2004, when I got out, there was no space to process. And matter of fact, I heard some really insensitive things from mental health providers. And it was more than just insensitive. It was actually borderline. Some of it was gaslighting. Some of it was just unhelpful. Like when you go to a therapist, you shouldn't feel like you're maybe an animal in the zoo, or that you're responsible for educating your therapist 100% on the community you came from and everything about them. Like they should at least take it upon themselves, in my opinion, to educate themselves a little smidget, like just a smidget. Make the effort to get to know something about the culture that you're coming from.
Right. I completely agree. And unfortunately, most therapists in the United States don't know anything about Amish and Mennonites other than this glorified Beverly Lewis rose-eyed glasses picture that we painted.
Like they're these wonderful people. So
Yeah.
wait, hold up. I am a survivor of child sexual assault for a period of over 15 years. And I come to you and I want to have therapy with you. And you're supposed to be helping me. And the first thing you tell me is what wonderful people the Amish and Mennonites are.
Yeah, like I had Amish neighbors and they brought me sticky buns.
No, they brought me a casserole.
Yeah, I've heard that one, the sticky buns.
They gave me a loaf of bread.
Or my mom got an Amish quilt when she went to visit Lancaster. And it's so beautiful. I heard that one too.
Well, and you learned how to cook and clean and sew and do all this gardening and da 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 da. The list just goes on and on and on. So that's really unhelpful. So my very first question that I ask a new potential therapist is, are you ready? What do you think it is?
Do you know any Amish?
No. Are you familiar with Amish?
Ah.
And if the answer is no, well, that leads to a whole other set of questions. But let's say, hypothetically, they say, oh, yeah, da 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 da.
The bread.
Well, that's just a no-go. I'm going to go find somebody else because I can't work with you if you're going to sit here and glorify them to where they can do no wrong. Take them off the pedestal. Seriously, I've been saying this for 17 years. Take them off the pedestal. So anyways, so if they say no, I ask them, well, if something affected your client that you are unfamiliar with, how would you handle that? And that's again an opportunity for me to find out what type of ethics they practice as a counselor and whether or not they're going to look at me as an animal in the zoo.
Right.
Because or they're going to sit there and glorify it. And then if that answer satisfies me, then I'll move on to like, how do you plan to work through like PTSD? How do you treat that? How long have you been doing it? And I also ask about the LGBTQ community because for me, I can't work with somebody that's going to sit there and say stuff to me like, well, you're only gay because you were sexually assaulted. Well, first off, I was sexually assaulted because I was gay. Let's get something straight.
Yeah, that's so unethical.
But yes, people really think it is acceptable to tell people stuff like that. So I do ask that. And then I always ask, do you think we can work together? That's my first therapist visit.
Oh,
Would you add anything to that?
No, you got it covered. You got it covered. I did something similar with my therapist. You know, because I live in Lancaster, I live in Lancaster County. She lives in Lancaster County. So I was like, I want to know what your views of Mennonites are. And she's like telling me, she's like, I think they're these really weird people who impose archaic traditions on their children. And I was like, boom, you're my girl.
Yep. Well, see, in my current psychologist, he actually, yes, I have a male therapist. Thank you. He actually, when I asked him those questions, like I don't think he quite knew what to do or how to feel, but I feel like it's so important that first you find a therapist you can work with. And so the thing is when I asked him, like he knew nothing about the Amish, but I asked him what he would do, and his response was, well, when we get out of here, I'm actually going to go look that up.
Oh, wow.
So he actually did his homework, which is in and of itself, like that is the only appropriate answer. You need to go research that and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we have a comment. Somebody agrees with me because I'm right, because I'm the bishop today. No, I'm just kidding. What you think?
Well, I don't have I didn't, let's just say I didn't screen my therapist, or maybe I did, I don't know. But what about, I mean, as a social worker, Mark, what about like people who need to get out or just really in need of help, or they want to bring charges, like
right.
What could you talk about that? What's the process of what's the first step, and what does that look like, and what's going to happen? If you say, "Hey, I want to report a family member."
So the best thing that you can do is link up with a victim's advocate, like some type of organization that does victims advocacy. Because if you're doing it on your own and you're just coming out of the plain setting, you're not going to understand how laws work and how
could you name any? Could you name a victims advocate organization?
Advocate? Yeah, Joanna Yoder, Never Stands Alone. Hope and Dweck, A Better Way. There's and then there's a couple more. You can Google, and then you can use a secular victims advocate, because they'll be able to help you. They might not understand the Amish or the Mennonite side, but they'll be
Mhm.
able to help you with filing the charges.
Right.
So most DA's offices have a victims advocate.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that you can go to and talk to. And a good detective in the police department is also going to listen to you. So if not all detectives, I've found out the hard way that not all detectives are great. Like, they don't want to take your complaint seriously because it happened XYZ years ago, and to them it's a dead case.
Well, so let me run this idea by you. When that Cosmopolitan piece came out, it was kind of made a pretty big splash like 6 months, a year ago. You familiar with what I'm talking about?
Oh
That
yeah, the Plain People's Podcast was mentioned in there.
yeah.
Yes.
So after that came out, I went down to our local police station and I wanted to, in that story it was clearly established that these, and I don't know if they were minors, and that's a good point to know, but this young woman was taken to this quasi Amish, plain community mental health facility and was coerced to take psychotropic drugs based on the information given without any um, a diagnosis from a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and that's just flat out illegal.
Right, it is.
And so I took this spoke to a detective, and he didn't lift a finger. He didn't even he basically told me to piss off.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
Well,
and the most that he did is turn it. It was like a regulatory thing, and he put it on me to well, you got to figure out this and call this the right agency. Didn't treat it at all as a criminal act.
Was it LCPD that you went down and
Yeah,
talked to?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. They've done that for a number of Amish and Mennonite victims. Like,
well,
I know people who've personally gone in there and they've just like brushed them off to the side because, in their minds, the Mennonites and the Amish are these great people and they police themselves.
again, take them off the damn pedestal. They are not perfect. We're all humans.
And I
Everybody
guess
is it's so harmful because it's like you end up with these stories of like if you read like the Missy Griffin story, like first off, like hers she reported and they did nothing, even though like she had bruises on her. That would have sufficed as evidence that there was at least physical abuse. And if they had done an investigation, they would have at least known that it was true and prevented 10 more years of perpetrating by a pedophile. And instead of doing that, they turned around and said, no, no, wash their hands of it. It's all about the money. And it's also the same thing that kind of happened when I came forward because my case wasn't just in Wisconsin. There were also 3 additional perpetrators that were sent to Pennsylvania, and they sat on it and did nothing because it would affect their tourism.
Yes.
That's
I
exactly why they never did anything.
I have been trying to get the state's attorney general to open an investigation into the Amish and Mennonites in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
What Marlene is saying, there are law firms that are looking for clients because they want to sue the churches and businesses. That is true. That is 100% true. I'm friends with or acquaintances with the guy who sued the Haldeman Mennonite Church. for covering up abuse.
Did he
And
win?
he got a huge settlement because of that. Like, yes, there
Wow.
are firms that take on, like, some of these firms that specialize in, like, taking on the Catholic Church. They're looking to take on, and they'll help you with advocates and they'll help you find a therapist. So
That's really good information. Thank you.
Yeah, Marlene made a very good point, because
Thank you.
I'm working with a lawyer myself. I can't speak to what it's about, but I am working with a lawyer myself in regards to a Mennonite issue.
Oh, hey, we got Chris talking about Lancaster loves tourism. Tourism equals dollars. That's right. It's like they're like this. Dollar, 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 dollar. They're at the strip club today.
Yeah.
Except that's literally what it's like.
Yeah. Why do you think we have all these hotels on 30?
That's exactly what it is. It's all about the dollars. They don't care. It's like the almighty dollar, you know. Yeah, I'm using that phrase again.
Yeah, almighty dollar. But no, we have an Amish farm next to the Target on 30 that people tour. A working Amish farm. Like, who wants to tour that? I'm sorry.
Are they taking showers more than once a week?
I would hope so.
Well, you know, in my community, we were allowed to take a bath once a week, no showers.
Yeah, that's what my neighbor was telling me, that he only takes a bath once a week.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't want to tour that far.
I live in Gap, so I have Amish all around me.
You're surrounded.
Right. You moved to Gap. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I moved to Gap, so I have like Amish. I've got Amish everywhere.
So Lizzie says, Mark, thanks so much for sharing how advocates are so important.
Oh, you're so welcome, Lizzie, because they so are.
They really are. And someday I'll tell the story of how I know Lizzie. Look for that soon.
Oh, I'm excited.
It'll be interesting. And I was considering a lawsuit against the school that protected my perp. You know, this is...
Go for it. Go for it.
Get him. We need to stand together and hold these perpetrators accountable for their actions. And at the end of the day, it's a crime. It's unacceptable. And we need to do better. Like, somehow there has to be something going up.
And if we have to do it in civil court, we can do it in civil court.
There you go. Do it.
You might not get, like, I personally did not get justice through the legal system. I got my justice in civil court. I got my justice. It's sealed, but I got my justice in civil court.
Well, that's awesome.
Where I walked away with a nice amount of money.
Good. Because
I'm very happy.
Because at the end of the day, we need to hold perpetrators accountable.
Well, the thing that worries me...
The look on that man's face when he realized how much money he was going to have to give me was priceless.
Oh, yeah? Was it healing, too?
It was very healing.
Did it make you feel like you finally figured out their game and you finally played it better than he was playing it?
Yes, he didn't care. He would gladly sit in jail and be a martyr and have, his family run his business and everything.
Oh, of course.
And you making
of
money
course.
and do all this. But to actually hurt the pocketbook.
Well, we just talked about the almighty dollar.
Yeah, that's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that concerns me is that what if and you two can probably attest to this, but what if a victim walks into Lancaster Police Department and and gets that kind of treatment, and it's traumatic enough to get the courage up to try to report, and then you're just sort of brushed off. And I wish we'd have a more, and maybe I'm just not in the right circles, but I wish we'd have a more uh, public victims advocacy around the Plain community. So that it was just it would just be a fixture of the community, that if and that the support would be there, the
We
across a
have
broad. Go ahead.
Elam and Lancaster. We have the task force. I'm going to put it in quotes. Trying to put it in quotes. That Linda Crockett and Judge Reinecker started. So I've been trying to refer people to that. I haven't heard a lot of great things about it, but at least it's a start in the right direction.
Okay. And here's another thing that kind of like drives me crazy is like, so in my case, like one of the key factors in my ability to get out was me going to a crisis intervention center for domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
What resources do people have if they don't have money? Because, you know, as most of us know, when you're like up to a certain age, like your plain parents will take your money. So if you don't have resources and you just want some help in processing this trauma, like what resources are available?
Honestly, there's not a whole lot of free resources. You'd have to get on like some type of insurance, like Medicare, Medicaid, and then you can get like, you know, the therapy sessions. But it's hard to find free resources because, you know, therapists don't want to work pro bono.
Mm-hmm.
So it is hard to find free resources for therapy.
One of my perpetrators paid for my therapy through the Crisis Intervention Center.
Okay, yeah, and that's another thing. You can go to like a crisis intervention center, but organizations that I work for, like Water Street Ministries, it's a homeless shelter. They have counselors on staff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Gotcha.
so there are a lot of like shelters and organizations like that that have some type of counselor on staff, be it an LCSW, an LSW, some type of therapist.
And then here's another question. So for those who just come out of the community, how do you apply for Medicare or Medicaid? Because it's my opinion, in my experience, like usually the hospital or the medical facility will help you apply for it.
Yes, they will. And you can also go to the local office and they will help you apply for it as well.
That's good to know.
Yeah, like social workers, that's our job. So we help people do that.
Where is the local office? And what's it called if you're searching for it or don't know the address?
I don't know, but I know you can Google it and you'll be able to find. I don't know our local office.
How do you Google that, Mark?
You just
Look, Elam's technologically impaired.
you would Google Medicaid office.
Right.
In your town, probably.
In your town, yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe the Social Security office can also help point you in the right direction as well.
Yep.
So let me talk another scenario. There's a local call center, or at least a regional call center. It's our 211 number, and you're basically supposed to be able to call it, and they are set up. The people answering the phones are set up to sort of direct you to every possible public resource. Yes. And there was a big. Go ahead.
I forgot about 211, but yes.
But what I wanted to talk about that is that there was a big article how they were expanding and doing all this good work and in the paper. So I called I called them up and I spoke to their executive director and I asked them if I asked her if they train their call I forget what the name is for the people taking the calls, to be, are they socially or culturally aware of what an Amish person might call for? And basically the answer was no. There's no awareness, there's no training. They assumed 100% that kind of person would just be funneled into the system the way as it exists. But and I'm not sure. In the article that featured Mary's story many years ago, there was an example given of a woman who called a shelter, or, a hotline multiple times, and they just ignored her because they didn't. They assumed that she was outside of their jurisdiction or something, and finally. It was what was the article called, Mary?
Are you talking about Legal Affairs by Nadia Lavia?
Yeah, it was called anyway. The what the story was is that finally after multiple calls they came out, but then they didn't follow procedure and remove the victim. And the victim was they took her and removed her teeth and told her that, I guess you're going to keep your mouth shut now. And it's such a horrific example of a failure of the social services system to successfully interact with the Amish. And this executive director, she did not, she didn't want to have anything to do. Just completely, again, basically told me to piss off. And
Wow.
and the thing of it is that it's true that I wouldn't be able. So if they train them, there's not a lot of Amish centric resources, although there would be now with the task force maybe and there's a better way. Those organizations there would be there, but there's not awareness and like for example, I helped organize a conference where an ex-Muslim spoke and she talked about how when their young people sort of don't want to assimilate and basically become what they refer to as apostates and run away, and they're minors, and the police pick them up, the first thing they'll do is find a religious leader in their community, and it's the worst possible thing they could do. And I don't have that specific example, but I feel like some of these social services are just like the task force. I'm really skeptical of the task force, and I agree. You got to start somewhere and you got to try something. But
here's my question. Can I interject?
Go ahead.
Here's my question about the task force. So does the task force, one, do they even acknowledge or realize that like 8 out of 9 people did not have words in our language for their body parts, and therefore, when I said my stomach, I was really referring to my vagina hurting. So are people aware of that? Do they even have the education to be able to set up this task force? what about like the language barrier and how like Amish people will straight up, like currently Amish people, I had somebody who was supposedly translating for me, my dearly beloved departed egg donor, who took me to a doctor, and when the doctor did their like sexual assault questions to me, like they took me to a separate room and they asked me these questions, and because I didn't speak enough English, they brought in my egg donor to translate, and she lied to them. She straight up lied to them.
And
So
Wow.
why are these people aware of that? Like, would they actually bring in like an actual person that maybe grew up in the community or like speaks the language but isn't actually
I
going to
know
lie?
we have interpreters. I know we have interpreters in Lancaster County.
well, but here's the thing though. My doctor that I see is at the Lime Spring, Penn State. I think it's Penn State, Penn Medicine. I'm not sure. And it's a big doctor's office. It's this huge complex. They have a big sign there. If you need an interpreter, here's all the interpreters we can get for you. Well, guess what? There's no Pennsylvania Dutch there. And anyway,
Really?
so it's just
Yeah.
it's like they don't take it seriously. You know what is this task force doing? What's their agenda? What are the things that they are actually working on? And do they run those by the bishops? This Judge Reinecker had done this task force thing before, and one of the people that was the paper said is on the task force was Donald Crable and 2 Amish bishops.
Don't even
So
get me started.
so
Don't even get me started.
you know maybe this time it's a little different, but anyway,
It is a little different this time.
I've got questions.
You have why you gotta
Sorry.
question
Yeah,
everything? Du hast einen unzufriedener Geist.
Yeah, you damn right.
That's an unsatisfied spirit, guys. Elam is possessed by a spirit and it's always unsatisfied. Okay.
Boy, do I feel like I'm back home.
But you were saying something, Mark? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that the task force has like 2 couples from the community and then a few other people on it. I had actually emailed with one of the leaders of the task force and was trying to get on it or like come share my story so they see the importance of having plain people on the task force, and they weren't interested.
Well, that's the thing. Any task. See, I don't want to be too critical of these people's efforts. We need to respond to this, and thank God they're trying to do something. But there's something absolutely unbelievably twisted about a law enforcement official actively participating in an endeavor that's specifically trying to change Amish culture. That's what Wisconsin versus Yoder was about. Ooh, the Amish are so fucking perfect that we can't dare influence them. And here we are, and it's Orwellian. It's the worst freaking evil that has ever been perpetuated on the planet Earth, is bringing together law enforcement and collaborating with religious authorities to do what? What the blankety blank are these people doing?
So we actually have, let me just say this. We have a whole bunch of comments and some questions from people. And you're kind of like almost getting there. But let's look at some of these comments.
Let's do.
Because they're willing to sacrifice innocent people for dollars. Yes, not just innocent people, also children. Saturday bath night growing up. Remember that?
Who was that?
Chris. And here's another one talking about bus tables at Good and Plenty restaurant deep in the middle of the tourist traps. Oh, you poor thing. I'm glad you survived. That sounds traumatic. Oh, here's a question going back to our earlier conversation about attorneys actively looking for people to sue the church. Could charity be sued for protecting and having preaching available on their site by a pedo? Do you know the answer, Mark?
I don't know if they could be sued for having his materials available, but they could be sued for protecting him.
There you go, Chris.
There you go. You can at least sue him for one of those things. This is the first I've heard of this task force. And then here's a good one.
Papers.
Thoughts and tips for being an ally for current victims who are still too afraid to leave. There's of course very little contact and very controlled contact. So it's all very sneaky. Again, no one believes it. Not CPS, not the police. This is a Mennonite community.
Wow.
Just listen and
Just
be ready to run.
literally, I
Be ready
mean,
to run.
like,
be ready to, if your victim is an adult, be ready to run.
Yep.
Like
I mean,
I have personally snuck a grown-ass Mennonite woman out of her parents' home and taken her to safety. So if she's being currently abused and no one's doing anything about it, and you can provide a safe environment, she slept on my couch for 2 weeks.
I mean,
so we could get her into a safer environment.
And that's absolutely noble of you, but we really need to work on better infrastructure and accountable social services, because what can happen is they can trust the wrong person.
mm-hmm.
I believe
Exactly.
There's literally predators circling the community hoping for that situation to happen. I'm not so sure that it's not actually currently happening.
Would you like to kind of expand on why you believe there's predators circling the community looking for victims?
There's sorry, I can't remember her name. I probably shouldn't use it anyhow. But there were these two young women who just left the community in the last 6 months, and I can't verify this, but the report that I heard is that they're with a known predator. And anyway, that's why we need accountable social services, because this sort of hit or miss, who they know, it's not good. There's go ahead.
Can we also talk about well, this might be a little bit much, but like, didn't you know a chiropractor or something?
That's the story I'm referring to. But if you take for example, what was the woman that was at our conference that she wrote a book, Furlong?
Saloma Furlong.
She wrote a book about her story, and it's an amazing, beautiful story. And she basically runs away I think she would have been an adult at that point. She was like 18 or something. But in terms of her innocence and her, her street smarts, she was incredibly vulnerable, and she got lucky. And one of the things that I commented about on her story is that not all runaway girls get that lucky. They don't all end up in the arms of a wonderful person like her partner. I'll shut up.
Oh, were you rambling?
I always ramble.
To wash longsome. You just got to be long talking, like for reals. That's what you always do. But no, like, so one of the things that I think is really important as an ally is to reassure the victim that this is not their fault. It's not okay for them to continue to abuse them. Make sure they know that they have a safe place to go to, and that either way, it's okay. But let them know that you will support them and that you're there for them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Anyways, more
Yeah,
comments.
I didn't have that.
That's really rough. That sounds really, really rough. Talking. mm, Do you want to talk about that, Mark? What it's like to leave and
Yeah, it depends. It depends what you consider quality therapy. I mean, I'm of the opinion that while you might not have the best therapist, that a good therapist, somebody who's practicing ethics and morals, will be able to help you at least a little bit. And, you know, that's better than, I know this sounds so callous, and I'm going to probably be raked over the coals for this, but that's better than nothing at all.
I'm getting out my rake. So
So
what did you
I know we'd all love to have the therapist who has the couch that you lay on and and you sit there for like an hour.
Yours doesn't have that?
And they have, mine does. Mine does. I have the VA. I have VA insurance. So
So yeah.
Therapist. But yeah, Chris is right that there are a lot of insurances that don't provide the best type of therapy.
Yeah, this is true.
So I don't know what type of insurance Chris has, but I will agree with that statement.
That's really sad though, because people need to treat their brain.
It is really sad. It is really sad. And unfortunately, like most therapists, the good therapists are very expensive. Like they can be upwards of $200 a session.
Uh-huh.
So that's why it's important to try to go after your perpetrator in civil court and get money to pay the cost of the therapy.
Yep. This is true.
Do we need to do a
civil court? You have a much better chance of winning in civil court than you do in a court of law.
Should we set up like this structure where people can apply and we help them through how to bring a case to civil court?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would be down for that because I've done it. I've done it twice.
What are you giving me shit for, Mary?
I have so many things on my plate.
I was asking Mark.
Oh, you're gonna set it up. Okay. Let me sit back and relax.
I'll let you chill.
I need a vacation this year. I'm gonna let you know right now. I need a vacation this year.
Mark has done it successfully, and so he could just sort of sketch out. Here's what happens. Here's what you do, and here's the process, and
yeah,
and here's the type of lawyer you ask to help you, and blah blah blah.
Oh,
because there are lawyers that are hungry for their 5 minutes of fame, and suing a Mennonite or Amish church or bishop or whatever that's going to get you on Good Morning America.
Hey, Elam. It
Yes.
almost sounds like Mark has taken over your technologically impaired internet problems because he sounds like a robot right now.
Dang.
So for those who didn't understand the
It's,
robot,
you know what it is. It's that Gap internet service. I
what
mean,
did they do? Go back
Oh,
to AOL? Oh, hey, look, I know something current. Did they go back to AOL? But I think what Mark said is that you're going to have a much higher chance. There are lawyers who are hungry for their 5 minutes of fame, and winning a lawsuit against an Amish or Mennonite church will give them that, and it could also give you like resources to get good mental health care. And here's a comment from Marlene talking
yes.
about maybe like-minded folks to do some sort of outreach at auctions, Green Dragon, and other places where the plain folk meet. I love that idea. What do you guys think?
I think that's a good idea. Um, I think a lot of people will be scared to take any information that we have, though, because their friends, their neighbors are going to be seeing it.
like,
But
ooh, you were
just
talking to those people.
to have an easily
What?
visible number that somebody can memorize.
Why is it that
Is
the non-Amish world, the Amish hold themselves and the Mennonites too, probably as separate of the world, and then you have this whole the non-Amish world, the English people per se, will sit there and think it is their due diligence to go tell the. In my case, they told the deacon that what I was doing was wrong, and they took pictures and showed the deacon. Let's not even get into that. But what I'm saying is why do they feel like they need to go report these Amish people for violating whatever they perceive that they need to act as, when in fact, Amish people still are people who deserve like basic human rights?
mm-hmm.
You get them,
Why?
Mary.
Why? I want to know why. Can anybody answer that?
It's
Why
this.
do the non-Amish
I
police the
have no
Amish
answer
people?
other than people are just nosy.
Well, I guess we could start a prayer chain for them. We should send an email, huh? It would be like the letters that we used to get with all the. Never mind.
Did you do circle
Budget.
letters, Mary?
Yes.
Yes. All I'm saying, just yes. Anyways. So yeah, what's the task force goals?
Yeah, somebody, Chris, if this is a committee meeting, let's assign Chris to find out what the task force goals are.
Well,
Yeah.
the task force goals are to help Amish and Mennonite sexual abuse survivors. So
Yeah, but how are they doing
How
that?
are they doing that?
I want to know what specifically they're doing. I
What
want
are-
to help. I want to help abuse victims too.
they're very secretive.
Well, that's the
They're
problem.
very secretive.
There's no public accountability, and yet this freaking judge is doing this. It's and it's this feel good thing that people can think, oh, we have a judge who's working on this problem, and it's bullshit. We don't know what he's doing. It's corrupt.
I say vote the judge out. If you don't vote and you live in Lancaster County, go vote the judge out. What's going to happen to the task force?
Well, and the thing of it is that the task force is probably not even connected to his.
Judge Reinecker. I'm gonna speak a little bit in defense of Judge Reinecker, because Judge Reinecker does have a good history of sentencing plain people.
Okay, that's good. How does he sentence them? Does he give them 1 year in the county jail with a work release?
No,
I'm nosy,
no,
Mark.
No,
She wants details. She's always nitpicking, what's the specifics?
Give me
I
specific.
can't remember. Remember, I just woke up off an Indian sleep. So.
No, I can vouch for that.
Okay.
I was involved with, or I was
Yeah.
present when he sentenced that. I don't remember names, but I was at the courthouse for a sentencing, and he really threw the book at him, and
Yeah.
it was really refreshing to see.
Yeah.
But that's
Okay.
not the same thing as social advocacy for this problem, and collaborating with the Amish community specifically. Here's the problem. The problem exists because of favoritism and collaboration with the courts to give Amish faith this wide deference of, oh, you guys go do your thing, you can't do anything wrong. Well, that was fucking wrong, excuse me. And now a judge is going to fix it? There's no way. This is not going to be made worse by this judge's involvement. Swear to right hand to fucking God. This judge's involvement is going to make this situation worse.
Well, and it has resulted in like Amish bishops and Amish people who are like, it's against my religion. Doesn't matter what it is, but if they get found out or they get caught doing something illegal, they're automatically like, it's against my religion. Oh, here's from the same person as before, Megan Weaver. She said there's so many. And then she said, but we are willing and ready to run. Yeah, you get them. I believe in you.
Well, run.
Exactly.
Joanna Yoder never stands alone.
Here's
Is
another
always
one.
ready to take someone in.
When running, if there's no known safe place to run to, people can end up in an even worse or as bad a situation. This is absolutely true. If you have nowhere to go and you don't get,
Oh yeah,
like you can end up in a space you never thought. And it can be even worse, and that's horrifying to me because people that have went through so much should not really. There should be some way for them to get resources. Oh, and here's another one. So what if you just got out of the community and you don't have a birth certificate? How can you get help?
There you go, Mary. You know how to answer that one. I am going to duck out.
You're abandoning people?
Y'all got this. We got about 7 minutes left. And I've been talking too much anyhow, so.
Okay, bye.
I love you.
You're rude. Anyways, where were we at, Mark? I think
the birth certificate.
Yeah, birth certificate. So like there's like a whole process to go through. Usually most states, like you have to go to the place that you were born at. You have to apply for a birth certificate in that county and tell them that you were born plain and born Amish. And there's usually a set out specific steps that you have to take. And, it could be up to like 6 weeks, 2 months, sometimes even 3 months before you actually get a birth certificate. And that can really be just a hard time, I think. Did you guys have birth certificates? Like when you got out, Mark? Yeah, did you have a birth certificate?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I had a birth certificate because remember, I wasn't born plain.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I'm guessing you had a social security number too, huh?
Yeah, I got lucky.
I didn't have that either.
I had a social security number.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, that makes
security number.
Which makes me wonder it makes me wonder if like people are trying to like help people get out, like they could always help them gather those documents and apply for those documents and have them mailed to somebody else's house before they drive them away. That could give you, if they
Yeah,
don't have
that's
them.
what I would do.
Yeah. Oh, we
That's what
should
I
come vacation.
do.
I would do that too. We should come in vacation in Florida, Mark. You want to go?
I'll go see Rhea.
All right, Rhea. That's the vacation. That's what we need. Ha! Chris says we should protest at the Bible school.
I'm down for a good protest.
You know, if you guys do this, you gotta let me know so I can fly out and protest with you. I want to do that. That sounds like a good time. Oh, okay. They are living their ideals of the perfect quaint utopia vicariously through another group, kind of how people live another part of themselves through rock stars, although the answer to the question is complex. Do you know what this is about?
The
Oh,
separation from the world has an irony been interwoven into our culture, a lot to fix. Busting this open is not easy, but it must be done. Society is going to have to rely on its own reflection. I'm not sure what it's about, but I agree with it.
I think when I was asking, like, why do the non-Amish people, like, police up Amish people or Mennonite people that they see, like, crowding the fence or, you know, the rule breakers? Yeah, why do they go take that to the ministry? Yeah, that's right. Thank you. That's absolutely right. So, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners and viewers, Mark?
Yeah, I just think that it's important that if an Amish or Mennonite person comes to you with a concern, that you listen, that you don't judge, and especially that you gossip, that you keep that person's concerns, their issues close to the vest, because gossip is so prevalent in our Amish and Mennonite circles, and that's how the bishops find everything out. It's because everyone gossips. So, you know,
well,
you
they have
might need to
nothing
do a
else to
rescue
do.
of that person.
They have
Exactly.
nothing. They have nothing else to do. So, like, if you tell John's Amos over there that, you know, Mark over here did this, trust, their gossip line will have like the bishop knowing that in like within 24 hours maximum, probably more like 20 minutes. I also think it's a safety issue because a lot of times when people get when people do reach out for help and they don't get that, or like the wrong person in the community finds out, like that can come back and result in even more harm and more abuse being heaped upon the victim. So if an Amish, I'm gonna.
To me.
Oh my
God! That happened
God!
to me when I was like I confided in somebody and begged them for help, and the next thing I knew, the ministry were at my house, like at calling me a liar and saying this thing never happened, and it was traumatizing because I thought this person was my friend.
That's fucking terrible. It really is. Like you don't do that. So please think about that, and also please take care of. I'm wrapping this up, unless you got anything else.
No, I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming. And thank Elam for showing up. This is just your friendly reminder today, like to take care of your mental health. Make sure that you take care of your mental health. It is extremely important, especially when you're involved in helping other people or you have went through extreme trauma. You need to have and you deserve to have mental health care. Everybody does. Have a good evening, guys.